NFL wide receiver for the Super Bowl.
Throws a long ball. Deep down the left.
Let's take a look at how A.J. Brown, wide receiver for the Philadelphia Eagles, trains and see how you might be able to improve your own strength and power on the pitch.
15, I started working out. I wasn't too fond of it, but I started doing it, and as I got older and I grew, it became fun.
Gotta stop and ready. So one of the first places we see that is a real struggle for some athletes is teenage athletes actually enjoying the gym and keeping them going to the gym. So in certain circumstances, we'll find that teenage athletes in some sports have a really strong cultural and institutional knowledge around actually going to the gym, and it'll be accepted. For example, rugby in Ireland is a sport where in certain schools, teenagers going to the gym is widely accepted. It's something that people are used to. It's people are willing to go to the gym at teenagers. But in other places, it can be often quite difficult to encourage teenagers to go to the gym. You might be self-conscious about your body. You might not be in great physical shape. You might be out of shape now. And while the gym might be somewhere that is going to be really productive for you, convincing people to go to the gym, especially teenagers and athletes, can be quite difficult. It's something, of course, that's going to make a huge difference to your career, especially the younger you are. In that teenage age where he's talking about going at 15 years old is a great age to start going to the gym for sport, especially in sport like American football. The gym work is going to be really important, and the younger we can get in there and develop it, the less we need to try and develop other areas as he gets older and as that athlete gets older. So encouraging those athletes, making the gym enjoyable and make it a place where they can see the outcome of their gains is a tough job to do. And we get very frequently asked by multiple different coaches, be it judo or soccer or football, how do I encourage, how do I train these athletes? Because in a lot of cases at that teenage age, coaches are also the coaches in the gym. So coaches who coach them on the pitch or on the tennis court or wherever it may be, they're also the coaches who are lumped with doing the S&C work. So they're in a position where they need to figure out how to do effective S&C work, but they're also playing the psychological game of encouraging these younger athletes to go to the gym.
The advice that stuck with me is from my trainer today, Joey Gracio, and that goes back into saying doing that one extra rep. But to really train yourself, don't just do the rep in the weight room just because it's what it says. No, actually, that's your game time moment, and so you need to lock in and put everything you have in these moments, and so you can try to get the max ability when you step out on the field.
Oh, so I love this. So I love the fact that he's saying that he takes his gym work seriously. And I think if you look at him in terms of physical specimen, that's pretty obvious to see. Taking the gym work seriously isn't something every athlete does, and it's not something every elite athlete does. There might be multiple reasons for this. One, they might just simply not enjoy doing that. Two, it might not be something that they're particularly adept at, even though they might be good at their sport. Doing the gym work is something that might be uncomfortable. They might be used to having their raw athletic talent pulling them through their sport, and so when they go to the gym work, it can be something that can be very tough for them. And as a result of the enormous training load, depending on where they are during their career, maybe they're a collegiate athlete, maybe they're a full-time athlete, a semi-athlete, a semi-professional athlete, the gym work can often be something that's done with as little effort as possible. It's often done as a tick the box session. A lot of times it's done because attendance is mandatory, and if you don't show up to the gym work, you won't be put on the team, or you won't maybe receive funding or other areas like that. A lot of athletes just don't want to do that. However, from what we see, the best athletes are the ones who show up to the gym, do what they need to do, put the effort they need to put into those gym sessions, and they reap the rewards. That doesn't mean killing yourself. It doesn't mean overtraining. It doesn't mean going to failure in every session and every set and exercise you do. But it does mean that when they come to the gym, they do the things they need to do. They put in the effort they need to do, and they're aware of the process, and they're aware of how valuable it is for them as athletes.
We're going to start with Kaiser power squats, 4 sets, 3 reps. I'm trying to be explosive as I can here in this video, so it can translate on the field with me coming off the ball and just really just running, working my lower body, legs, glutes.
Kaiser squats are something that seem to be growing in popularity, certainly on the American side of sports, and we can see it a lot in the American football side. Don't really have any particular affinity for them. Essentially, it just seems to be warming up with a large lower body multi-joint exercise. You could simply do this with squats if you wanted to, depending on what stage of the season you're in. If you're in season, what we would typically do is usually barbell squats. It might be box squats depending on the athlete, or it could be front squats. If you're a professional athlete and you need to be really sharp and it's game week, a velocity meter might be used there, or a really sharp coach's eye watching for the speed of that barbell. It's a good way after general warm-up and you want to get those faster exercises done. If you know, for example, later in the session he's doing a lot of lower body assistance work or upper body assistance work, we want to get our big compound strength movement done first. In this case, it's kind of doubling as a power exercise because we're in season, we have games to play, so we want to remain fresh, but we also want to maintain our strength and power as much as possible. So something like the Kaiser squat is a good option. We don't particularly use it, largely because we find that the barbell squats or variations are quite productive. But if you have access to something like this, there's nothing particularly wrong with that.
As a receiver, the most important muscle group, I would definitely say the lower body, the glutes, the hammies, the quads, the ankle mobility. I want to say really from your waist down, because so much goes into it. And you're running, you're cutting, you're putting your foot in the ground, you're stopping, you're starting, you're running as fast as possible, and you're stopping as fast as possible. So the lower body is so important, and you have to take care of, and you have to train really.
I don't know who is educating these Philadelphia Eagles athletes. I don't know, is it something that they're recruiting specifically, athletes who are really well conscious, super conscious of their training? But this is the third video of these athletes that we've done on the Philadelphia Eagles, and they're all very in tune with why they're doing the stuff they need to do in the gym. They're really in a position where they understand that this is the thing they need to be doing. They're conscious of why they're doing those exercises, and they're appreciative of what they will do for them on the pitch. Another great little tidbit I heard there is the ankle mobility. This is something we harp on a lot about. If people are trying to run fast, especially if you're running or changing direction on a tennis court, on a pitch, wherever it is, if you're changing direction, having ankle mobility and strong quads is an absolute game changer. The change of direction is really, really well correlated with strength, and also having good mobility will make this a lot easier. If you can get your knee really far over your toe, if you can decelerate really fast and then push off that leg and change direction as fast as possible, you will be able to be obviously a better athlete. How do you do this? Have good ankle mobility, have strong quads, strong legs, strong hip extensors. Having that good mobility while being strong in that position will allow you to change that direction as quickly as possible, and it is something that is crucial for loads of sports. Change of direction, it's being strong. There is values that we can clearly take from the gym that will correlate to the pitch, and that is strong, and in this case, strong and mobile.
Next up, hamstring rotation, 3 sets, 5 reps. Here is just really simple, just trying to work on the hamstring flexibility, lower body, upper body flexibility, that just translate with everything, because without my hamstrings, and I can't do anything, so.
Okay, so we've got some what we would call hip airplanes. These seem to be a slightly different variation, and it's definitely something I will try out later to see if it actually does feel good in your hamstrings. Having strong and flexible hamstrings, in our opinion, is going to be one of the best ways that you can prevent the dreaded hamstring pull or tear. If you're a field sport athlete or you're a track and field athlete and you've tried to run fast in a direction, at some point in your career, you've probably hurt your hamstring. And we all know how annoying in sport and daily life a pulled hamstring is. Two good ways of ensuring, in our opinion, and from what we've seen with players and athletes, of ensuring that you reduce your chances or come back faster from hamstring injuries and don't see as much recurrence, is have flexible hamstrings and have strong hamstrings. It's simply said, but it takes a little bit of work, but it will hopefully give you this position that if your hamstring reaches a stretch or a force at the stretch position that it's not used to, it is very likely going to end up with you hurting that hamstring. However, if it's stretched in a position that it's used to and it's strong in that position, you are likely reducing your chance of tearing your hamstring. Takes a lot of work, but it does pay off.
Next up, we got Kaiser anti-rotation press, 3 sets, 8 reps. It's just really self-explanatory, just a press, working the upper body, that movement, that translates with me when I'm blocking, get my hands on guys, and, driving them off the ball.
Okay, so I would call these peel-off press. If you've ran the Sika Strength app or any of our programs, you would have known these as a peel-off press. It is simply anti-rotational work. We find them incredibly useful, and they're something that you can load up really aggressively. They're not uber fatiguing, and they're quite easy to set up if you have a resistance band. If you have a cable machine like this, then that's perfectly fine. Core strength is obviously really useful for change of direction against someone else, resisting someone pushing you, pushing against someone, certainly in a physical sport like this, if you're grappling, if you're doing anything where you come in contact with someone else and you need to stop them, or you need to not let them stop you. Having a strong core is a no-brainer. It's minimum energy. It takes so little time to train your core. In most cases, it's quite simple, and very few people will actually hate training your core. You can get it done in a total of 30 minutes per week. You can have a very strong and respectable core that will make a meaningful difference.
I like to box a lot. It helps on the football field. It translates because of the cardio I do in the boxing. I do it for one, that I fell in love with the sport, but also that I never get tired. It's just another way if I can do cardio without putting a lot of stress on my joints and you know, just to stay active.
I'm going to interject a personal opinion here. Lots of athletes of a certain brand, or some people love using boxing as conditioning. I don't really see the appeal in it, but it does have very definitive value in terms of you're moving your body really intensively over a short period of time, and you're going to get some extra conditioning done. He said he likes it and it feels good, and if there's anything we can do to encourage athletes to do something that we want them to do in a fashion that they enjoy, it's going to be better for all of us as coaches and better for you as an athlete. So in terms of his physicality, there's probably a psychological boost here of practicing some striking that might reflect how he brings that energy onto the pitch. So boxing, sparring, punching a bag, it's fine, but preferably someone use a bike or an assault bike here, but boxing is completely fine.
Up is dumbbell bench press, 4 sets, 5 reps. You can increase the weight if you want to. I do. I kind of get carried away actually because, you know, I like to look good, you know. But it translates on the field with everything, with hand fighting at the line of scrimmage, or me just being physical in between my routes, and you know, making sure I have room to catch the ball, fighting off guys. That's everything.
Dumbbell bench press is obviously something that's going to be incredibly useful for a physical sport. Having a strong upper body, pushing dumbbells is going to be very, very useful. The notable thing here is that he said he gets carried away. And as a coach, sometimes this can be really annoying. If you're coaching an athlete and we need to be defined and progressible each week, we need to make sure that we're working off the same sheet, and we need to understand that we have a progression planned. But at the same time, it's kind of nice to have an athlete who wants to push that gym work when they need to push it. It's good to have that bit of hunger. And it's often a trait the best athletes have, is that they want to push these things because they want to make everything as productive as possible. They want to get the most value out of everything they're doing. So I don't really see this as a bad thing as long as it's tamed accordingly. I generally see it as a sign that better athletes are going to do this kind of thing. And hopefully then as a coach, you facilitate that. You try and educate them as much as possible on when it's smart to push and pull, but you're also facilitating them as much as you possibly can as a coach to ensure that you're working with that athlete's talent. And look, sometimes you do need to say, look, this was a terrible idea and you shouldn't be doing that. But in other cases, it's fine. It's not that big a deal. If he does an extra 5 kilos or an extra rep at the end, it's not going to ruin the program. And if it does, there's something very wrong.
I don't have a favorite body part to work out, but I would say just upper body. You know, I'm big, strong. I like to look good, you know, feel good, and, you know, intimidate people.
So there is definitely something worthy of note there. In a sport where you're combating with other people of varying degrees, whether that's just tackling them on the pitch or you're a grappler, having a physically imposing presence is good for you because it increases your confidence. If you're a bigger athlete and you feel more physically imposing, you are going to be more confident. Obviously, in this case as well, if you're an athlete who needs to get sponsorships, you looking better is always going to be more useful. But the other side of this is intimidating your opponent is incredibly valuable. Looking like someone who can deal a lot of damage is going to make some intangible differences. It may not be easy to define that being physically imposing is going to make a big difference, but you can be sure if you've seen a big dude and you know they're going to get tackled by them, or you know that's your opposing position, or you know you're going to go up against them in a jiu-jitsu match or a judo match, you know if they are physically imposing, it does kind of put you in the back foot if you're not also in good condition yourself. So there's a valuable note there and something to worth thinking about in your own training.
Next up, hip thrust, 3 sets of 8 reps. It's one of my favorite exercises because it helps out with everything. You know, we can't run unless our glutes are firing, and most definitely we can't stop without our glutes are firing. So that's just something that I'm trying to strengthen and make sure I can be explosive. That goes into the explosive category that I do on a daily.
Okay, so what we've got there is hip thrusts. He's doing single leg hip thrusts. The only really place that we use hip thrust is single leg glute bridge holds. It can be useful for some people for their glute development, but in general, we just don't really use hip thrusts. It's just not an exercise that we favor. Some coaches might like them. That's fine. He seems to enjoy doing them. There isn't really many major negatives, but we also don't see a huge amount of major positive on hip thrusts. There hasn't been a case yet in a lot of years of coaching where the heavy hip thrust has been the exercise that's made the difference for us. I'm sure there's other ways you go about doing that, so I'm not really particularly being pedantic here and saying you should never use hip thrusts. I'm just saying from our point of view, it's not something we've ever used. They can be a useful exercise, I suppose, in some circumstances, but we find that there's some more effective ways of going about training.
Me and Devontae workout is different, but kind of similar in some ways. He may go lighter, and sometimes I go lighter, and sometimes I go heavier. But as the season progresses, we all tend to lower our weight because it's just not a smart thing to do. And you have to learn to manage that, and I feel like we have done a great job in the weight room to manage what works best for us. Next up, single leg extensions, 3 sets of 8 reps. One of my favorites that I like to add in to make sure everything is working accordingly. My lower half, so it's really quad dominant, and making sure my quad is strong, because my quad is strong and my knee is good, and it goes all the way down to my ankle. So everything works up, everything's in a straight line, and that is a target area that I'm gonna focus, because I have to stop at full speed, and these are my breaks.
Now, you might not have been around the fitness industry or the strength and conditioning industry for long enough, but there was a time where leg extensions were thought to be incredibly detrimental to your knee health. It was thought that if you do leg extensions, you are going to guarantee to hurt your knees. This was a thing probably about 15 years ago. It peaked, or was near the tail end, I suppose, that leg extensions, seated leg extensions, were something that were absolutely going to hurt your knees. That for some reason, this fixed pattern was going to hurt your knees. This was something that, while I didn't do a lot of leg extensions, it was definitely something where I was aware of in the kind of culture of training, was that leg extensions could hurt your knees. There was no basis for this. It was just probably people who had sore knees did leg extensions. Their knees were sore when they did leg extensions, and this permeated the culture. There was definitely articles and stuff like this. Now we know that's probably not the case, that leg extensions are probably no more or worse for your knee than other activities might be. They can be quite useful. Some people actually find them quite useful when they have patella injuries. So they find that isometrics on the leg extension can be something that can help relieve the pain. Whether that's a long-term effective training tool for patella tendonitis or in really inflamed tendon is probably up for debate, but some people certainly do find in the warm-up that if they do some leg extensions coupled with some isometrics, that they do find that their knee pain is reduced. Might be worth trying for your own case. Leg extensions, again, an isolated muscle, fantastic exercise when in the right place.
Next up, kettlebell swings. We got 4 sets of 6 reps. I like to go heavy on these, extremely heavy. Working glutes, hammies. Again, this is something I'm gonna keep targeting, because as a receiver, I'm running, I'm stopping, and it's one of my favorite exercises, because it's real simple to do, real easy, and I can go as heavy as I want to. And, but make sure you do it correctly, because you don't want back problems.
Okay, the last exercise in the gym we've got is kettlebell swings. Now, some athletes love kettlebell swings, some athletes hate them. I personally do not enjoy heavy kettlebell swings. It's not something I get a lot out of. In general, I just get a lot of lower back fatigue. But some athletes get a lot of use of their glutes and hamstrings doing kettlebell swings. So in those cases, it can be quite productive. We are fans, if you're using kettlebell swings, you can use them for conditioning in some cases, which is fine. But if you want to use them as strength exercise, loading them up can be quite useful. Sometimes people are afraid of actually increasing the weight on those kettlebell swings, but very often a common factor on top of that is the fact that a lot of places won't have heavy kettlebell swings. So here, he's got a 48 kilo kettlebell. I think the heaviest kettlebell I've ever seen in real life is 60 kilos, and there's definitely people who could swing those. So it's more of a practicality issue here. One thing you could do to mitigate this is putting a resistance band around the kettlebell that'll increase it. Essentially the resistance you're applying, so it'll make the kettlebell essentially heavier near the top of the rep as it moves through the repetition. So they can be great for some athletes for hamstrings and glute development, for the hinging pattern. I don't personally like them for me, but I know they are a valuable exercise. So that's, again, just me interjecting my personal opinion. If there's anyone you'd like to see on this series, please do let me know. The Philadelphia Eagles have a lot of great videos up, so that's why we're on the 3rd one of these. But if there's other sports that you would like to see, as you probably know, we've done a lot of track and field athletes, a lot of wrestlers and throwers before. So it's great to see anything different, lots of swimmers. So if there's anyone in particular you'd like to see that has footage online, do please let us know and we'll get to it.